It's your time for Chai with Nanice. Get ready for substance, clarity, change, and especially empowerment. Get ready to turn over stones, uncover stories, and get to the heart of the matter in every area of your life. Any mood runs, any emotion flies, and your dreams are within your grasp. There are no limits or boundaries, and your comfort zone is out of reach, yet it's the safest place you will ever be. Come in, sit down, and have some chai with Nanice.
Hi everyone, you're listening to Chai with Nanice, and I'm Nanice. Today's show is about innocence. Now, I know when people hear the idea of innocence, they often think of someone who's naive or, someone who's just not with it so much. But today we're going to talk about it in a whole new sense. And I'm going to ask you to surrender these ideas about innocence that you may have had, and I'm going to challenge you to reconsider some new and beautiful ideas about what it means to be innocent. When I think about innocence, I immediately think of someone who is true to themselves. Now, if you've listened to the shows on December 19th and 26th, you've heard me and my guests speak about the courage to be the real you, and then a revolutionary approach to depression, which goes back to being your true self. When you are living and responding from your true self, you are innocent. You are innocent because the world, with all its opinions, rules, and limitations, does not affect you. Imagine that. Instead of being influenced by outside factors, you look deep within yourself, your real self, for the answers. And you respond to life on a moment-to-moment basis. That doesn't mean that you don't make plans and long-term commitments. Certainly, you do. Life calls for that. What it does mean is that when you make these plans for the future, they are based on your greatest desires and most intuitive feelings. In other words, your life is a direct reflection of who you really are. So today, we're going to talk about what it means to be innocent. What your life might look like if you let go of all your walls and protective beliefs and tried on the concept of innocence. My guest today is the beautiful Tamara Gudeman, and she's just a very, very dear, dear person in this world and a very dear person to me. She is extremely passionate. She has a passion for healing, helping, connecting, sharing with others. She's an amazing wife and mother of two, as well as a classical homeopathic practitioner. And she knows about innocence. So I welcome you, Tamara.
Oh, Nanice, I'm so honored to share this time with you and your listeners. Thank you so much.
I'm honored to share this time with you, and I'm really honored that we are doing this in such a way that others get to look in on one of our intimate conversations that we have. Right. And that's the fun to me. Yeah. So I'm gonna ask you, what does innocence really mean to you?
Well, when we were speaking of innocence, and the first thing that comes up for me is I feel or think of a youthful spirit, and as you said earlier, to have a true knowing and a sense of oneself, the ability to respect your own intuition, that instinct that lies within all of us. Yeah. And to just truly love oneself, and from there you love others because it's so easy because you're honest and loving yourself.
Right, and to me, it's a love. The loving is an overflow, and I think very often what we try to do is what I call a bypass, and the bypass is we're empty inside ourselves, and we try to give so much to other people, and there's nothing to give, and eventually we're exhausted and we're just debilitated because there's just so much you can give when there's nothing inside.
Right.
And so,
right.
Yeah.
Yeah,
but when you're full inside.
So when you become, pardon?
Yes, no, go ahead. I'm sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, no, I'm sorry. I'm completely stepping on you.
No, it's part of conversation. It's what normally happens in conversation, but we're just more aware of it because there's people listening to us. So just whatever happens, it's great. It's great. Yes.
It is true. The whole goal is just to remain full and to remain truthful to yourself, and that's that innocence of loving oneself first. Yes. And it may seem selfish to someone that is more caught up in like an ego state of not being able to recognize that someone is just truly taking care of themselves.
Yes.
So I can see, and once you're full and then you can spill over, like you said, that's such a beautiful analogy to be able to share with others, then you can be healthy.
Yes. Yes. And I know that one thing that you and I do share, and I think a lot of people listening share as well, is that we've each come through a time in our life where we put others first and we forgot about ourselves. And
right, absolutely.
we still kept giving, and eventually there's no more to give. And very often it's that place that you start looking for solutions. Okay, well, I can't give to anybody else because there's nothing left. And you start turning within, and you start looking it's like almost like you're taking all the energy back, and you're filling yourself first. And then the most amazing thing happens, because as soon as you fill yourself completely with yourself, and that's the key, because very often we try to fill ourselves with food, relationships, outside events, TV, it doesn't even matter what it is, but we try to fill ourselves with these things that are not really substantial, where they don't really fill us. They just kind of give the illusion, a momentary illusion. And that's not filling. When I and I know you talk about filling, what we're really talking about is filling ourselves with ourselves. And that's
right.
Taking all your energy and putting it inside you. And yeah, that might sound, a lot of people thinking, well, I can't do that. That just feels so selfish. But really what it is what I call self-full. So you're full of self. And when that happens, when you're completely full of self and all your energy you're giving to yourself, what has to happen, it's inevitable, is that it gets to a point where that energy, there's nowhere for that energy to go but to overflow. And what you end up doing with the overflowed energy is giving it to other people. And so now you end up doing the same things for other people as you did before, except you're not doing it from a place of depletion. You're doing this from a place of abundance and overflowing, which is amazing, A lot of people in my life tell me, they say to me, where do you get all this energy? You're just always helping people, and don't you get exhausted? And honestly, now I don't. Now it's like it's like and I think I'd used this analogy last time we saw each other. It would be like, not the energy that it would take not to hug your child, the energy that it would take not to love your child. That takes more energy than hugging and loving your child, because it's an expression, it's an overflowing, it's like it wants to go somewhere. And so when I take care of myself fully, which I do now 24/7, when I take care of myself fully, that I have so much overflowing that I can't help but be there and help other people and give of that energy. It actually helps to fuel me, because it just keeps recycling. And
right. And so to get to that point,
yes,
because I see that, and I've experienced it as well as you have, and
yes.
And it feels like, okay, so slowly you take on all of these layers, and you're not being true to yourself. So then it's hard to recognize who you even are inside, and you question it, and you say, gosh, is that really me? Or maybe you'll stick that selfish label on there, right? And others might as well. And so to work towards getting back to being true to yourself and that fullness and that vivaciousness that you have, which gives you the ability to be able to say no and truly mean it, or yes and truly mean it, and to honor yourself. Like, I don't know how many people can truly say that they're honoring themselves at every moment, except for maybe a handful of innocent young children, right?
And that's where the innocence goes back to. And that's a question that I would like to give to our audience today, is that to ask yourself, how often am I truly honoring myself? And that's a question that you can present to yourself throughout the day. Am I honoring myself in this situation? Am I honoring myself in this situation? Am I honoring myself when I say yes? Am I honoring myself when I say no? And truly, it's a moment-to-moment experience of honoring yourself. So it's a constant questioning. Now, I know a lot of you out there, you're thinking, oh, that's a lot of work. I don't think that I can do that. But let me tell you that it takes a lot more energy not to do that, because what happens is when we don't question whether we're honoring ourselves, we go on this automatic pilot, and the automatic pilot very often is in a dishonoring of ourselves, and that's where all your energy goes. And so,
because then you have to undo it. Yeah.
Yes, yes, yes.
Right. And so when you're honoring yourself, it's much more simple because you're listening to that inner voice, that free spirit, that
yes.
I call it the Holy Spirit talking to me, because
yes.
when I know that sounds silly, but when I get to that point, if I say something and I'm truly honoring myself and I might be sharing with someone, I get chill bumps, and I know, man, I've hit the nail right on the head, and it's the greatest feeling of knowing and feeling full and centered, and that kind of, wow, like, that's who I am. I am honoring myself.
Yes. And when you honor yourself, really on a spiritual level, you're honoring everybody else. And that's what most people don't get. Yes. Even if it doesn't seem that way at a time. And so that reminds me of a story. And this man, he had his own business, and he had this employee that just, did not do a very good job, was actually costing the man a lot of money. And after this was going on for like 2 or 3 years, finally the man, got up the courage to fire this employee, and he felt awful about it, because he was telling a story about it. He goes, how are they going to, it was actually a woman. He goes, how's this woman going to feed her kids and pay for her mortgage? And he just went on, and that's why he tolerated the situation for years. And so finally got up the courage to fire her. Well, she came back to him 6 months later, and she said, thank you so much. That was the best thing that anybody has ever done for me, because I was so miserable. I was so unhappy, in that job, and it wasn't me. And I wanted you to fire me because I didn't have the courage to leave myself. And when you did fire me, I wasn't happy at first because I was scared, but what that made me do is look inside myself. And as a result, I've actually started my own business, and it's only been, a few months now, but I can see that it's going to be very successful. So thank you from the bottom of my heart, because when you did what supported you, what honored you, you actually did what honored me as well.
Wow, that's so perfect.
Yeah.
Yes. So it's that ability, it's that overflowing.
Yes.
The being full and overflowing, and when you withhold, your God-given self, or whatever you want to say it is, that true, being true to oneself, when you withhold that, you're withholding it from that other person, and like you said, it might be what they need to hear. So that's the selfishness, and then that selfishness that you're withholding because you're kind of stuffing, which is a common, a common term out there. You're stuffing it, or I stuffed it, or then you make yourself sick. I mean, because you're not honoring and being true to yourself.
Right.
At least that's what's happened to me in the past. And I'm every day I work through this. And just having the light from, our conversation, and you might know it, and you might be derailed a little bit, because it's so easy in our society to become derailed about of honoring yourself.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
People don't really honor themselves.
Mm-hmm.
It's rare, and it's happening more and more, and it's beautiful. But So when you can get back to that point, which is.
And why do you think that people don't honor themselves? Why do you think that it's so rampant that people don't honor themselves?
Well, the word that comes up for me, it just keeps popping up, is ego, and that's such a large, small word.
Large, small word.
Yeah. It has so many angles you can take with it, but you're afraid of. You're afraid of showing who you truly are because someone might judge you.
Yes.
How silly is that? Like, you want someone to know who you truly are. And then if they judge you and they don't like you, well, that's okay, because at least they know who you truly are.
Right.
I think that's one derailment. What would you say?
I think it starts happening when we're very young, before we have the ability to discern. So it's like, when I was a kid, I just remember, I was a rather challenging child and got into a lot of mischief, shall we say, as far as my mother would definitely say. And, my mother, in her great loving way, wanted to protect me from myself, right? And even she actually, there are pictures of me, and she has a harness on me with a leash. Yes, I know, yeah. And so, what happens to a child when they're constantly, and I don't blame my mom at all, really, I was a difficult child, and she did a wonderful job with me. But
Trying to keep you safe.
Trying to keep me safe, and that was I just got to keep her safe. I just got to keep her alive. I just got to, I am the protector of this precious child, and she did a damn good job because I'm here today. But I think that very often, children get the message that I have to suppress something inside myself in order to be safe in the world. And safe can mean not just physically, but emotionally too. So I think we're constantly giving children this message that it's not safe to honor yourself. It's not safe to really express yourself.
Right.
And
seen and not heard.
Yes, seen and not heard. Yes. And honestly, I've raised my children to be themselves. And it's not always easy because they will definitely push you past your own personal comfort zones. And that doesn't mean that you don't protect them. Certainly you do, but there's a point where they have enough information to make their own decisions. And that's, it's a very challenging place for a parent because sometimes those decisions are not going to be what you might make for them. But ultimately, they discover who they are. It was interesting because my older son, I was on a radio show, and my older son, who's 27 now, Dustin, he was listening to the show, and I was talking about, the stories we make up and not being our real selves and all of that. And as we were listening to it, it was pre-recorded, he's listening to it, and he was, huh, and I said, what? And he said, I would never even considered not being my real self. I never even realized that was a possibility.
Wow.
Yeah, because he had the space to be himself.
Well done.
Yeah, thank you. And he doesn't know anything else but honoring himself. Like that, the thought would never occur to him. Now, having said that, he is so giving and so loving and so generous and considerate of other people's feelings, but yet he is always in honor of who he really is.
Wow, that's magnificent. And I, on the other hand, feel that having my two daughters, they're young, and not being in the place of innocence, fully in the place of innocence, maybe having the awareness and losing sight of it and giving so much from childhood, like you said, learning to give, learning to play the game, learning to understand other people's dogmas and survive, right?
Yes.
Not truly respecting myself and giving back to myself. So eventually, becoming a mom and truly depleting myself, emptying the pot, as you will. And my children, as all children and all adults, they feel this, they sense it, they take it on. So where I am today, sitting here and rebuilding and reconfirming myself and trying to constantly remind myself to be full, I want that same thing for my children. And it sounds like for your eldest, you were able to give him that from the beginning. But what about when they didn't have it from the beginning? So now there is some undoing to be done and some building up. So how does that take place?
That's a great question.
What does that look like?
Yeah, and so, because that was me, because I had to refine that again too. And, a lot of it is, it's questioning, we think we are our thoughts and we think we are our behaviors and we think we are, all those things that we present in the world, but we're not. We are so much more, and we can choose at any point to express whatever else it is that wants to work through us. And so I think a lot of the unraveling is questioning, like, is this really true? Does this really work for me? Is there something better that I want for myself, for my life? And
so basically sharing by example and just rebuilding, that individual or my children, we'll just use them as an example.
Yes.
This is such a welcomed journey and a challenge for me because I can see how just brilliant it is and what it gives to me, and I know my kids see it. So I guess when they see it through you, they get it.
Yes.
And every time you honor yourself to them or in front of them with others, they're going to understand that that's really what works.
Yes, exactly. Exactly. Because children, you can say all you want to children, but they really learn by example. That's it. So, it's like if they see, oh, mom gives herself freedom to say no, mom gives herself freedom to act silly, and believe me, I do. Mom gives herself permission to express all these different parts of herself, and she doesn't judge herself and she doesn't judge me when I do it, then, okay, maybe then it's okay for me to be myself too. Yes.
Right.
Yeah.
The act silly part and be that innocent child on that side is more easy for me than to say no to someone, because I love, like, what truly makes my spirit shine and me happy is to be there for others, to be there to help, to heal, to share, to connect.
Me too. Absolutely.
Yes. Yeah. So I have this very fine line that I have to, it's great. How much greater of a person will I be when I can achieve that fully?
Yes.
But
yes.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. And so for me, I'm always what I call at choice. I'm always at choice. So when I say yes to something, you as in, anybody, you who's asking me, that person knows that I'm saying yes because it's a true yes, that it's not a yes out of obligation or guilt or anything like that. It's a true yes. And what a gift to give to another person. A true yes. Yeah.
Yes. Oh, that is, yes, it's so powerful.
Hmm?
It's so powerful and solid, right? That's what people, and they know that that's what's coming from your yes. But you're overflowing and they feel that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So the derailing factors that we see in society that are truly in place and are the norm, quote unquote, are all around us. And so like you said, if you can look at everything as a choice and each time honor yourself.
Exactly. And sometimes that's not going to be easy. And I'm going to guess that a lot of times that's not going to be easy, only because you've been doing it differently for so long.
Right.
And so when
most people, so you're not alone. I'm not alone. You're not alone. They're not alone.
Right.
Because I think it's really, I think that people look at me and they really think that I probably do honor myself more than most. Mm-hmm. And for me, I honor myself not even nearly enough to where I desire to be.
Right, because it's huge. When you're really honoring yourself, it's huge. It's almost decadent. I hate to say. No, I don't hate to say. It's true. It's decadent. When you're honoring yourself, it's really decadent. But then what happens, and what's required to really do that is a lack of judgment about it. That you just do it because it feels right. And what happens is, again, that overflowing, then you have so much to give, so much. It's endless what you have to give. And that's a gift.
So when you say lack of judgment on yourself,
yes,
that's that true love for oneself. And yes, I believe that we can all get there.
Yes.
So that big word, that ego, so that's what pops up. It's that questioning, that lack of the judgment is actually the ego, right?
Absolutely. Absolutely. And, the ego's gotten a bad rap. I think the ego is a great thing, because without the ego, we wouldn't have the experience of life that we do. It actually keeps us in the body, and it actually is like a processor. Like in a computer, there's a processor. The ego is a processor. But what happens is it's also judges. And so if we can shift the judging to discernment, because discernment is really like, okay, what's best for me? Judging is making something right or wrong, good or bad. And honestly, this whole concept of right and wrong and good and bad, I don't live by that anymore, because it's really, it's not a spiritual, I know there's going to be a lot of religious people saying, what? But it's the idea of right and wrong are human concepts. They are not spiritual concepts. They are concepts that we've used in religions for a very long time, and a lot of that is because religions want to have authority and power. But true spirituality, to be a truly spiritual person, this idea of right and wrong and good and bad do not exist in higher realms. And when we can start releasing those ideas, and now I know there's a lot of people thinking, well, if there's no good and bad and right and wrong, then how are people, going to follow the rules and the laws? Well, the rules and the laws, the regulations, the laws, all that, they're only in place because we have gotten so out of touch with who we really are deep inside, our own spiritual, powerful selves, our God selves. Yeah.
Yeah, your true innocence.
Yes, absolutely.
Listening to your innocent, intuitive instinct.
Yes, yes. And so when we go back to that, there is no right and wrong, because we get to check inside to see, well, what's right for me at that moment without judging something as being wrong. So it's being a choice without the ideas of right and wrong, good and bad, because when we take that off, then we are able to get back in touch with who we are. Young children, there's a point for every child, and it's different for every child, but there's a point before they learn the difference between right and wrong and good and bad. And that's when they're truly innocent. Once somebody learns this is right, that's wrong, this is good, that's bad, and once they start labeling it in themselves especially, that's when they start to lose their innocence.
Right, and you know what that makes me think of is the small child that is sitting there, and another child comes up and wants their toy, and they're really not ready to let go of that toy.
Right.
There is no, there's no ego involved. There's no no, I'm not going to give it to you because you really want it. It's just I'm not ready to let it go. And then it could be a second, it could be 5 seconds, it could be 10 minutes, and they get up and they walk away and they don't care who touches the toy. That's the place of genuine innocence and just honoring yourself and others.
Mm-hmm. Yes. Yes, and it's like when we truly honor ourselves, what happens as a result of that is the honoring of others. Right.
Well, that is just a natural consequence of honoring yourself.
Yes.
You used a beautiful analogy saying you're full and it overflows.
Thank you. And because what I see is that if I were just to honor you without honoring myself, I am not really honoring you.
Mm-mm.
What I'm doing is I'm pretending to honor you so I get some kind of emotional need met.
Right. Placating.
Yes. Yeah.
Right.
But when I honor myself, and because then I know what true honor is, then the honor overflows and I put it onto you. That's true honor.
Right.
When I can recognize the God in me, or however you want to call it, then I can recognize the God in you. I cannot recognize the God in you until I first recognize it in me. Because if I only recognize it in you without recognizing it in me, then I will feel inferior. I will feel less than. I will feel, that I need something from you. And then I'm truly not recognizing who you really are or honoring you. So first I have to recognize and honor who I am before I can give it to anybody else.
Right, and I bet that there are a million people out there just like me sitting here saying, okay, so the first step is, right? And so, I mean, I would just throw in there that for me, I guess I would say one step at a time. Just honor yourself one step at a time.
Right, and this is the first step. Yes. Yeah, just considering it, just actually trying this on, listening to this conversation, that's the first step. That is the first step. Yeah, because a lot of people up until this moment never even considered this concept. So congratulations, you've done the first step without even trying. The next step, and I don't even want to number them, and they may not necessarily be in order, but the next step is just seeing how it applies to your life and questioning, because then the questioning becomes an unraveling. And if you can find just one moment, one thing in your life where you can be at choice and you can honor yourself and you can just relax, drop down into that. And what I mean by drop down, it's just surrender to that, relax to that, and you have that experience. And then you try another area of your life where you do the same thing. And you just keep extending that to different areas of your life. And it's uncomfortable at first, but you accept the uncomfort. You will get past it, I promise. And then you start to see how your life is changing and unfolding like a flower. And then it gets easier and easier and easier. And then it gets to a point where it is you. It's effortless. You don't have to think about it. You have become master of it. And that's when it's integrated into every cell of your being. And that's when it truly overflows to other people. And you can give this very same gift that you're getting now to the other people in your life just by example.
Mm.
Yeah.
That's really beautiful. I'm kind of playing devil's advocate here.
Cool.
Because
yes, and I hear that.
Yeah, well, because you know what? I think that, I'm in that place because I am aware, and you and I have had this conversation,
Yes.
so you have flipped that switch for me, and thank you so much. And it is like a little flame. It's a little ember, and it does grow, and I get that.
Yes.
But I'm still in the place of, okay, so yes, but how do you stay in that place of honoring yourself and not feel like, oh, somebody's going to I'm going to hurt somebody's feelings, or am I being irresponsible? So those are the things that kind of come up.
So I'm going to say something a little bit surprising, and that is, one, it's okay to hurt somebody's feelings, and it's okay to be what you consider irrational. Because when you give yourself, yes, yeah, because when you give yourself permission, see, it's like, as long as we're like, oh, I can't hurt someone's feelings, then that becomes a parameter or a barrier or a wall that keeps us from really honoring ourselves. So it's like going back to the boss who wouldn't fire this woman who was ruining his business. He wouldn't fire her for years, and she wanted to be fired. It was like, please let me go, and he wouldn't, because he was afraid of hurting her feelings, hurting her life. And so part of it is giving yourself permission to do that, and knowing that if you are, and this is the faith piece, that if you are honoring yourself on some level, even the person's feelings that you seem to be hurting, you're really honoring them too.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Yes.
I can see that. I can definitely see that. And so that is going to take, for me, it's going to take practice.
Yes.
Because for so many years I have been not honoring myself and taking care of others, and like you said, not truly taking care of others, because how can you take care of others when you're not taking care of yourself?
Right.
But that will take practice. But I know that every other time you do, I take one step, it seems like a giant leap.
Yes. Yes.
Wow.
You know, I think like when I started doing power yoga 3 years ago, and I could barely survive a class, never mind, like, being able to do the poses. I'm talking, like, I was surprised every time I actually was alive at the end of the class. It was a surprise to me because it was so brutally hard. But yet I kept going back, and I kept practicing, and that's why they call it a yoga practice. And I kept practicing, and one at a time, one pose at a time, I got. And I'm still in the process of getting it, but it's a matter of practicing it. And the trick to practicing is releasing the judgment, because if I show up at yoga and I'm judging myself like, oh, I'm not doing this good enough, or that's not right, or what if I fall over and take someone else down? By the way, that has happened. Then I can't really, I can't really show up completely. And so it's a matter of practicing it without judgment. So if
we look at life like your yoga class, and you fall over and you kick somebody, and so that's kind of like hurting someone's feelings, right?
Yes.
If you look at it on that level. Now, they know that you're truly just trying to better your practice, and you come back every week, and when they see you in your perfect pose, they are going to respect you and completely have forgotten about that little kick.
Absolutely. And in fact, that kick is really a connection, because then I get to connect with them on another level. And what you say reminds me, I love that you put this into the metaphor in that way. That's beautiful. And a lot of times for the people in our life, it's like sitting down with them and telling them that the thing that I'm focusing on this year is honoring myself. And I'm afraid that in the honoring myself that it might seem like I'm dishonoring you when I say no to this or no to that. I don't even know what that means right now, but I'm asking for the space to kind of practice this, because it's going to take some practice, and I might hurt your feelings, and I just want you to know that is never, ever, ever my intention to hurt your feelings. My intention is to be the best person I can be, so that I can overflow and give to you authentically. And so I'm just asking you for a little space, that if I do hurt your feelings, to know who I am and where it's coming from.
Wow, that's really beautiful. And from that little sharing to our friends,
Yeah.
You'll definitely find out who your true friends are, because some people will look at you and just go, okay, you're crazy.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
And then once I'm sure that it all turns out perfect in the long run. But
yes.
that takes a lot of chutzpah, as they say, to be able to say something like that.
Yes. Yes.
But then
absolutely.
you're truly owning it. You're owning it, and you're honoring yourself to even be able to get to the place of saying, this year I'm honoring myself.
Yes. And the other piece of it is inviting that person to honor themselves as well. Now, isn't that fun?
Right.
Now, and saying to them, what would it mean for you to honor yourself this year?
Right.
Yeah.
Wow. And you could learn a lot from that.
Exactly. And that I invite you, at least in this, if you're not ready to do in your whole life, I invite you to honor yourself in this relationship. And what that means is that I want you to be a choice with everything that has to do with me and our relationship. And I want you to know that knowing this, my feelings will not be hurt. I can take care of myself.
Wow.
Yeah. Could you imagine how that transforms relationships?
Right?
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And the heavy burdens and all of that.
Yes.
Yeah, it's interesting.
Yes.
I had a conversation very similar to this yesterday. So just truly being authentic with yourself takes you in some directions that are uncharted, and they feel so right inside and intuitively, but yet they're so unfamiliar that, and I kept saying to myself in the conversation that I had yesterday that was revolving around all this, I kept saying, oh, I'm so worried that this person is going to think I've lost my marbles. Mm-hmm. And then I had to keep saying to myself, you know what? If they do, they don't truly love me.
Exactly. Yes. Yes. And not only have I lost my marbles, Tamara, I don't even know where they are anymore. So I realize I don't need them. Yes, I don't need the marbles anymore.
Because you're not playing games.
Right.
Right? So marbles is a game, so you let it go.
Exactly.
That's very cute.
Yes. Yeah, that's very good. I never thought of it like that before. Yeah. And so I have to share something with you. So the other day, the evening of New Year's Day, I was going downtown to meet a couple of my friends at what is called, I'm in Salt Lake City, for those of you who don't know, and it's been very, very cold here. This morning I woke up and it was a whole 2 degrees, so it's freezing. Ooh. And so New Year's night, I went down to this outdoor mall called the Gateway, and I had to park a couple of blocks away from the restaurant. And I'm walking, and it's snowing, and it's beautiful, and it's probably about, it's in the 20s, and it's very cold, and it's dark. And I can hear in the background just the spontaneity of children laughing. I mean, I'm talking about laughter that just comes from all the way down deep in your belly. And I'm thinking, wow, it's late at night, it's dark out, it's the outdoor mall. Where is this coming from? Why do I hear children laughing? So I started following the sound, which luckily led me to where the restaurant was, because I would have never ended up there if it didn't. But it did. And what I found was there is this water fountain. It's the kind that, like, it's ground and the water comes up from the ground, and so it would pop up, and then the water would stop for several minutes or seconds or whatever, and then pop up again. Does that make sense? Okay.
Oh, yes.
Yeah. And so now imagine it's really cold out. Well, when I got up to the water fountain, what I saw was a bunch of children running through the water fountain. And it was absolutely amazing, because when they would run through the water fountain, there would be this act of faith, because they didn't know if the water was going to come up on them or not. And I'm telling you, it must have been awfully cold. And yet they kept doing it over and over again. Yeah, what's that about? Well, they kept doing it. They would take turns, and they would run across. And some of them would get wet, and sometimes they wouldn't get wet. And I just stood there, and I watched the spontaneity and the innocence of it, that it totally and absolutely did not matter to them what the results were, whether they got wet or they didn't get wet, whether whatever happened. And I stood there, and I thought, that is innocence. That is innocence.
That is innocence. And you know what? I applaud their parents because
Yes.
I probably would have been the parent because I would have been freezing out and been like, oh, you can't do that. You have to keep your shoes on. You know, and you know what? Big deal. So what? They get a cold. It's the natural consequence.
Exactly.
Right? But to squash that innocence because of my inability to be cold, that's the layer that, you know, is now gone. I'm taking that layer off right now.
Right. Right. And by the way, they did have their shoes on. Yes. And you know, for a moment there, I thought about joining them.
I love that.
Yes, and I probably would have if my friends were not waiting for me, and you know, I would have had to show up just soaking wet, which I don't know if that really would have surprised any of them. But it was
so
beautiful. Yes, yeah, to watch innocence in motion. Yeah, and that's part of what's required. It's taking a chance. You know, it's doing those things you always wanted to do, but stopped yourself from doing because you were afraid what other people would think, or you're afraid of the consequences. And certainly, you know, yes, yes, I'm going to address all the moms and concerns out there. Yes, there's a level of safety, and safety needs to be considered. I totally agree with that. And I provide that for myself and for my children. However, I think we go way beyond the necessary levels of safety, and we go to the point with ourselves and our family members where we stop them from being their true selves, and we stop ourselves from being our true selves. And what I'm saying is maybe just loosen that a little bit. Yeah.
Right. And don't be so concerned about, and I'm talking to myself too, as well as I'm sure other people are thinking this, but don't be so concerned about what someone else thinks that your kid just ate that whatever with his fingers at the dinner table. Right. Because it's truly your embarrassment, not theirs. Right. You know, it's their experience. Yes. And those are the things that those are the circumstances where I feel that we squash or get squashed. Yes. And then you stop respecting yourself. You stop like just doing things that are intuitive and innate and from your innocent self. Yes. And questioning yourself. And when you start to question yourself, that's when you go into that spinning cycle of your talk show last week or on the 26th. Yes. And, you know, in depression and self-loathing and all of that. Yes. And we don't want that. No. No. Not for us nor our children or society. Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah. Yeah. And you know, say that again? Go ahead. No, go ahead. Yeah, and so we touched upon briefly this idea of innocence being part of free-spiritedness, and I think that's huge right there. That, you know, what does it mean to you to be a free spirit? What does that mean to you? Well, that was all a part of my initial, you know, when you said what is innocence to you. Yeah. Yes. Before I delved into what Webster would say or Wikipedia had to say, I wrote down and it was very easy. It came to me very clearly what innocence was, and it was, you know, free spirit. And with spirit, I mean listening and listening to that inner voice, that guide that we all have, and I share that with my children. I constantly am asking them, how does that feel? How did that situation feel? And I'm hoping, and I see it more and more the more we talk about it, that they can tap into that. Yes. And that free spirit is being able to run through those fountains, you know, and take that risk, but also listen to that inner voice and know that that's what's right for you. Or have all your friends running through that fountain and say to yourself, you know what? That's really not what I want to do right now. Exactly. Okay, I just got chill bumps. Yes. I just got chill bumps. And that was that. That's that inner voice. That's the innocence. That's the free spirit. Yes, and because free-spiritedness also means, I love that you brought this up, it also means saying, no, I don't want to run through the fountain, no, I don't want to. It's being at choice. Free-spiritedness is being at choice. And so, like, if we break it down, so we are this spirit inhabited in this amazing body, and our spirit is free. And what freedom means to me is being at choice. And there's plenty of responsibility
that comes with being a free spirit, because it means answering to yourself at the deepest, most powerful, authentic, and intrinsic levels.
Right. So the ability to answer, to express oneself, to live life's purpose to its fullest.
Yes.
Yeah, without other people's dogmas and lack of guilt. You know, you just go without that, which they're just labels.
Yeah. Beautifully said. Yeah.
So it is interesting when you put the two words free spirit together. It is all encompassing of innocence.
Yeah.
Of what our definition. It seems that we agree on a definition of innocence as free spirit.
Yeah, absolutely. You know, and I want to, as we're talking about this, something else occurs to me, and that is there's also an element of stillness within innocence. That, you know, what I mean by stillness is it's this place inside of you. It's just that still, infinite place inside of you. And I think in order to really experience and express innocence, you need to be connected to that stillness. Because the innocence does not come out of a crazy mind that's always this and that and you know, directing you to do this and directing you not to do that. And that's not where innocence comes from. Innocence comes from this authentic place inside that in this moment I'm going to refer to as stillness. And that is, you know, who you really are in your infinite, most powerful self-being.
And that's so powerful, because it almost frightens me that you say that, because I think, oh my gosh, in this frenetic, crazy society that we live in, it's such a fast pace. I mean, I definitely, the connected part, I crave that. I crave connection, as we all do. Everyone wants to be loved. Everyone wants to be touched. And then the stillness, it's like, oh, how do you get there? Like, if you're not moving and you're not accomplishing and you're not multitasking at the, you know, the utmost, how are you ever going to be, you know, successful or productive or and you know what, it's scary, but I so agree with you, and thank you for pointing that out, because it's true.
Yeah. And so it occurs to me now that we need to do a show just on stillness.
Wow.
Yeah. So let's put that out in the next few weeks, that we'll come back and continue this conversation on stillness.
How exciting.
Would you like to do that with me, Tamara?
I would love to, but
cool.
I'm scared.
Oh, well, good then. Good. And so between now and then, I'm sure a lot will come up with you that I'm hoping that you'll share with me and to our wonderful audience out there.
Oh, thank you so much, and absolutely. And I'm hoping that many call in and share their thoughts on this, so that it can help guide me, because that is a new territory for sure.
Thank you so much,
Tamara. Los Angeles. Oh, thank you.
Thank you. I love you, and my heart is with you. And I just want to end the show with a few thoughts, and that is, at the core of who we are all innocent. Innocence is our absolute nature. When we are truly responding from innocence, life takes on a magical quality that we all have felt at moments. But you can live that magical quality every moment of the day. This magic comes from being in the moment and the ability to respond with higher wisdom that works through us. This higher wisdom is always, always available to us, whether we are responding from innocence or not. It's always there. It's our choice. But when we build up walls and believe stories that limit us and create fear, this intuitive wisdom is blocked. Only when we free ourselves of all limitations, whether it is the idea of right and wrong or the debilitating beliefs that cause fear, can we be a clear vessel for greater wisdom to work through us and in our lives. Innocence does not mean that you become a victim or you let things happen to you. Just the opposite. Innocence means that you become the master of your life, and you have faith that your real and most authentic self knows what is best for you. It means that you take off all the masks that you have been wearing and you finally approach your life full-heartedly. And when this happens, what you will discover is the life you have always dreamed about but didn't know how to create. When you get out of your own way, innocence will create it for you. You have been listening to Chai with Nanice. I'm Nanice, and I invite you to write to me at nanice@nanice.com or to visit my website, www.nanice.com. There are many articles and interesting features that I'd love to share with you. Be well, and I'll see you next week.
Thank you for having Chai with Nanice. Please go to www.nanice.com for great free stuff that will empower you to live your best possible life. Free books, articles, shows, meditation audios, and so much more at nanice.com. That's nanice.com. Nanice's books are also available in all major bookstores and Amazon. Check out The Infinite Power of You, Even Gandhi Got Hungry and Buddha Got Mad, Zest Point, Lip Prints, and many others by Nanice Ellis. To find out about one-on-one coaching and how Nanice can personally coach you to experience your best life possible, please email mybestlife@nanice.com.